there YouTube, Doc's Motorcycle Service. Rawr, 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 rawr. Welcome back to the garage. Right quick, check out the Facebook page. Like I said, I ain't gonna spam you to death over there, but we released some early content over there, some hints about what we're doing and some stuff you don't normally see on here. Anyway, welcome back to the garage. YouTube, we're gonna do a little sidebar video here today and talk about a tool. It's called a tap and die set. They are utilized to correct the threads on a bolt or inside a hole. Now, I'm going to give you a little tech tip throughout this thing and try to give you some education, because you know that's what I'm about. I'm about educating you so you can save some money and you can work on your own stuff and you can get a sense of satisfaction out of performing that work and saving that money. You have fine threads and you have coarse threads on your metal items that you work on your motorcycle. And you also have metric threads, depending on the manufacturer of your motorcycle or who's had it before and who put a bolt in the wrong hole. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. We are in the process of restoring a 1986 Heritage Softail that's been passed around by a bunch of different people. Just like anything, just like a used car, you never know the history of it. You never know how good the owner was who had it before you, or before the guy that had it before you, or the guy before him. People take different levels of pride in their repairs, I might say. You got that guy out there that, and I get it, I'm not talking about on the side of the road repairs. I'm talking about in a garage, in a shop, in your driveway repairs. Emergency repairs, man, you gotta do what you gotta do to get home. When you're working on something or putting something new on something and you pull, you just put whatever in there you got, you know, maybe if that's your bike and you're going to have it for the rest of your life and you'll remember that you forced that bolt in there and it doesn't bother you. It doesn't bother some people. Hell, man, there's people out there right now getting paid to work on motorcycles who will stick whatever they can in a hole to get that job done and get it down the road. That's one of the reasons I try to get you to work on your own stuff. If you go back, if you've been keeping up with the series, you'll remember back 10, 15 videos ago, I told you when you bring a motorcycle back from a shop that you've taken it to have repairs done on it, it's your responsibility to make sure those repairs were done right. Now, you can say, well, I don't know about that, Doc. I went over there and I paid that boy good money. I paid him good money to do service on my bike. Well, what if that good money gets you killed? Yeah, think about that. Your responsibility, your motorcycle, your life. So you need tools to work on these things. And as we were going through the series here, as I was getting into the swing arm this morning, the bolts weren't going in just right. There was a little there. As I mentioned in the previous video, and I'll probably mention again later, we're going to talk about chrome and how having something chrome plated can fill up the inside of a hole that you might need to put a bolt into. Therefore, you need to clean that hole out before you force that bolt in there. So a tap and die set is really good for that. They're inexpensive. You can purchase one from Snap-on for probably a couple $100. You can buy one at Harbor Freight for $40. Up to you. It's whatever you got to spend. But they're well worth having around the garage. Let's go over here and take a look at what a tap and die set does, what the parts of the tap and die set are, and how you can use them to better benefit you and your repairs. And again, get that sense of knowledge. All right, let's go. This is a tap and die set. Normally, it comes in a nice little carrying case, and it has these slotted areas where you can put your various sizes. And typically, you'll have metric set up on one side and your standard set up on the other. There's four basic parts to this kit. You're going to have your dies. These dies are designed to straighten up threads on something that has a bolt that has been put in the wrong hole. For example, this is a 3/8 by 16. This means that this is a 3/8 bolt diameter with a 16 thread count. So that would make it coarse. This is a 3/8 by 24, which means that it is fine thread. Fine thread means the threads are closer together. Coarse means they're further apart. What you will likely find working on old stuff is somebody has forced a 24 fine thread into a 16 coarse thread hole. And what happens when that occurs is this. If you can see the threads on the top that I have cleaned up versus the threads on the bottom, I don't think you can. I'll take a close-up picture with the camera and put up here. But what you're going to be seeing is the top half, the shiny part, is what I have cleaned up versus the bottom half, which are the nasty part. And this is a two-part problem. When you put a bolt into a hole that it doesn't belong in, it will either adapt the threads of the bolt to the threads in what you're putting it in, or it will adapt the threads of what you're putting it in to the bolt. Normally, the weaker metal loses. For example, and I'll show you here in a minute on this swing arm, this bolt had been forced into the swing arm. The swing arm is steel. I don't think this is steel. It's probably some type of alloyed bolt, and it probably lost the battle and its threads were adapted to the hole. The problem with that is, and in this situation it's not too bad because these go in the shocks and they stay with the shock. The problem is when you're working on something else and you get your bolts mixed up and you go to put the bolt back in the hole that you thought it came out of and it doesn't want to go, and guess what most people do? Duh, they force it in there. Now they've screwed up another bolt and another threaded hole. This is the die tool. The die simply sits in here and is held in place by a screw, and what you do is you put it on top and you start working it down. This is where you got to be real careful. It's when you first start it. You have to make sure your bolt ain't got to be perfectly straight, but you have to make sure that your tool starts on there perfectly straight. And then, as you can see here, I've been working on this one for a little bit. So it spins down. It spins down pretty good. But what's going to happen is, when it gets down there, it's going to stop. And if you've been keeping up with the video series, you'll know that my vise is not mounted. So I'm having to fight holding the vise while putting this on and putting it on straight to keep the threads straight. So now let's look at a tap. The tap is the other side of the equation, and it's slotted. Your threads aren't there everywhere, because as this tap cuts into the hole, it's going to leave debris, and the debris will actually fill these holes right here. And if it's a through hole, meaning you can see out the other side of it, for example, this carry handle right here, for all intensive purposes, is a hole. It's a through hole. I can see through to the other side. This is a blind hole. It is a hole, okay, but it's blocked. You can't see through it. So it's a blind hole versus a through hole. If you're tapping into a through hole, you can come up here with an air hose and blow the debris out the other side. If it's a blind hole, you can't. You have to run this in a little bit, run it out, use your air hose to blow the debris off of this and to blow the debris out of the hole, and then go back at it. And a little tech tip, anytime I'm using these things, anytime metal comes in contact with metal, it's going to get hot. I put a little 3-in-1 oil on it on every application, and the oil allows it to keep it kind of cool. It lessens the friction. But if you're really working over a thread like this, take it off, feel of it. If it's warm, let it cool down a little bit before you go back and start doing it again. The worst thing you want to do is heat this thing up and mess it up. So I'll put just a little bit of 3-in-1 oil on there. But you can see how well it's working for the threads that I've already put on there. Just run it down through your new threads. You're going to feel when you start to hit resistance. And I wouldn't go more than 1 full turn, maybe 1.5 turns after you hit that resistance, and then back it off and start over. Doesn't hurt. Put a little oil on for the return trip. Alright, we're getting her on down there. Blow the gobbledygook out. Feel it. If it feels cool, keep going. If it's a little warm, wait just a little bit. See all that gobbledygook right there at the bottom that's being cut off of this bolt? I'm going to take a picture for you. In this picture here, you will see that the head of the thread, the outermost part of the thread, see how flat it is below the gobbledygook? But look above it. You can see how sharp the threads are above it. That's what the die is doing. It's reshaping those threads and it's cutting all that gobbledygook off. That's why it's important to run it down about 1.5 turns after you meet resistance, because what's happening is now you're having to fight all that gobbledygook going down the bolt. Back it off, blow it out, take a wire brush to it, clean out the gobbledygook, put a little bit of oil on it, and go back at it. And here's the tech tip. If you're working on both the hole and the bolt, alternate between them. That way it'll give them enough time to cool down. When you go to run your tap in, same thing. Put a little oil on it. And here's a tech tip. Always make sure that your tap thread matches your die thread. If not, you're going to screw up. Normally, you would have a tool similar to this that pinches in on the side and grabs 2 sides of this 4-sided tap. But my buddy lost his, so simply getting a wrench that fits on there is fine. It's very hard to shoot this, so if my arm's getting in the way, I'm sorry. Put a little bit of lubricating oil on both sides. We're going to come in here and we're going to start our die. Now, I've already done some of this. Get it started straight. Run it up with your fingers. And you know, if you're tagging along, you know the transmission was right here. I should have checked these bolts, holes, before I installed the swing arm, knowing the past history of this bike and the fact that we had the swing arm chrome. I'm sure that some chrome got up in there, and if you watch the previous video, you'll note that I mentioned these spherical bearings that went into the swing arm right here at the pivoting max, and we had to clean that out. We had to take that down to the copper in order for the bearings to be pressed in safely. It should have dawned on me that we would have to do the same thing down here and clean out these holes a little bit. Just going to run this up finger tight till it stops. Take our wrench, and you know, YouTube, you can sit back and think about this and you can go, my gosh, he's not getting a lot on that. Well, you're right, but it was easier to take the transmission out than it was to take the swing arm out. Now, another little tech tip. Have you ever looked at your wrench and wondered why the head of it was not straight in line with the shaft of the wrench? It's there for a reason. Watch this. So I've got it set like this. I'm gonna push it up to here. I'm not getting anything out of it. But if I leave it like that and come back and try to get another bite on it, I can't. But if I simply rotate it over, now I can get a little bit more bite. And then rotate it again, get a bite, rotate it again, get a little bite, rotate it again, get a big bite, rotate it again, get a little bite. And what you're doing is you're just working this thing in here. Remember, you're not in a hurry. And another tech tip, do not use air tools, pneumatic tools on this thing. Just don't do it. Work it in. Now we're having to, on this one right here, I wouldn't say go 1.5 complete turns after you meet resistance. I would say maybe give it 1 full turn. But since we're not getting full quarter turns here, I've got to turn it a little bit further. But you can feel it when you have to grunt on it. When you grunt on it, that's a hint. Stop, start the process of taking it out. Because the last thing you want to do is break something that's 34 years old. Now you can feel it when it gets loose. You can come in here and grab it with your hand. And I'm going to try not to drop this thing so I can show you the goop it's bringing out. Aha. I'll take a picture. See that right there? That garbly goop? It's cutting it out. Can you see all that? Now we're going to take a air gun, our compressor, we're going to blow that out. We're going to blow out that hole. We're going to put a little bit more oil on it and we're going to keep going. This is an open hole. We talked about open holes, but guess what? I want to clean it really good, because if I don't, I'm going to blow that garbly gook over here onto the other side, and the other bolt's going to give me a fit going in. Another little tech tip. Remember we talked about how far to cut these down? You can pretty much take this thing here, lay it up here at the mark where it's going in. This one's going in about 5/8 of an inch. So what you can do is, you can put your piece of, when you think you're getting close, put your piece of tape on it, marking off 5/8, and then run it down to that tape, and then you know you got some good thread. Or we can test it like this. We can take this bolt, we can put it in here, and we can see how far it runs up. If it runs up to all the new clean threads, almost there. All right, so we'll do one more good cut on it. YouTube, I think we're good. We got nearly the entire tap in there now, and I think we're hitting the threads that were in there that weren't messed up, that were in there from the factory. So remember I was telling you about a tech tip of taking a piece of tape, putting it on your tap to measure the depth of it? Well, that's what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to take this, I'm going to put it on the tap. It's kind of oily, so I'm going to make enough to wrap all the way around it and come right up there to the base where it's touching. I'm going to back this thing out, and then we'll compare it to the bolt depth and see what kind of thread depth we have tapped out here. Always a good sign when you can use your finger to take it out. That means it's done what it's supposed to do in there. Got the blue tape marked right there. We know that it was about 5/8 of it down here, and you can see from our fat threads to our redone threads right there, we're dead on. YouTube, that's good, that's money. Okay, now let's try our bolt. So yeah, so we know from what this thing's got to pass through that it's going to be fine right there. That should be good. Just for comparison, let's go to the other side and look at it. But we're going to try this bolt in this hole just for giggles to see how it lines up, how well it goes in over here, and it'll tell us whether or not these threads are messed up. Well, you know what? It's getting a little tight right there, YouTube. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. I'm going to fix this side up, and we'll be right back. Right quick, YouTube. Check out the Facebook page. That's all I got to say about that. Okay, there you go. A tap and die set is a piece of equipment that you need in your garage. At some point, you are going to start a bolt crooked. You're going to put the wrong bolt in the wrong hole. And this tap and die set, now it's a little labor intensive, okay? I rethreaded, corrected the threads on 2 bolts, and I rethreaded or corrected the threads onto the swing arm on 2 sides. And I got out here about, probably gonna start on that about 9 o'clock this morning, and here it is about 1:30. All right, now I took some breaks. You know, fat boys gotta eat. But it's labor intensive because you can't force it. Like I said in those videos, if the tap is going into a hole and it's getting warm, stop, back it out, put a little bit more oil on it, let it cool down. If you're rethreading a bolt in a vise and you're getting them turns on it and it's getting kind of hard, slow down. If it gets hot, put a little oil on it, back it back out, let it cool down. You do that and you're going to have less heartache. I've seen people just run and then snap. Now they need a bolt. Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed this. As always, watch the sponsors a little bit. Don't get a whole lot of money from YouTube, but again, it buys another piece of chrome, which I show you how to put on, or it puts another tool in the garage, which I show you how to use. And that's about it. So YouTube, thanks for stopping by the garage. Rate, comment, share, ride safe, handle your business, save some money, and